You're watching EAC News. Thank you for joining us. Let's have a look at today's finance. The CSX index is currently at 534.11 points, up 2.74 points or 0.52%. The daily exchange rate is 4,043 real to the US dollars. Now look at what else is happening in finance around the world.
Wall Street reversed course and posted losses on Thursday while oil gained as Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell suggested that the US Central Bank would be more aggressive to curb inflation. Powell said that a half a point interest rate increase will be on the table when the Feds meet in May, adding it to be appropriate to be moved a little bit more quickly. US stocks opened strong, buoyed by corporate earnings and strong jobless data, but began to retreat ahead of Powell's afternoon's remarks. Those losses steepened after he spoke and investors' concerns about the central bank's inflation fight took centre stage. Oil prices gained ground as concerns about supply due to potential European ban on Russian oil came to foe. Russian forces stepped up their attacks in eastern Ukraine on Thursday. Brent crude settled up 1.4% at $108.33 a barrel, and US crude ended at 1.6 higher at $103.79 a barrel. A months-long rally in the dollar may be reaching a peak as the Federal Reserve gears up to deploy more interest rate hikes, according to currencies trading patterns in the past tightening circles. The dollar has risen around 7% against the basket of currencies in the past year to its highest level since March 2020. Boosted in past expectations for the Fed is really employ robust rates hikes to tame the worst inflation in nearly 40 years. Those gains are largely consistent with the dollar's behaviour during the last 4 rate hike cycles, which have been the US currency climb an average 2.2% in the 12 months before the central bank starting raising interest rates. An election win for French President Emmanuel Macron against the far-right candidate Marine Le Pen on Sunday could reduce headwinds to the euro, which is down 4.7% against the dollar this year. The Japanese yen, meanwhile, stands at a 2-decade low against the dollar. For now, however, momentum appears to be on the greenback side. The dollar index is up 2.3% for April, on pace for its best month since June 2021. The index is also on track for its 4th straight month of gains, the longest strength in 2 years. Asian shares wobbled on Friday as the Chinese yen slid and investors flattered about an increasingly aggressive rate hike outlook for the United States and the fallout in the global economic forum lockdowns in China. SCI's broadcast index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan fell 0.7% and touched a 5-week low, way down by its 1.6 loss for the Australia's Recovery Heavy Index at 0.8% drop in South Korea shares. Japan's Nikkei declined 1.6%. The European Open is also looking weak with STOXX 50 futures down 1.6% and FTSE futures down 1.2%. SP 500 futures are down 0.1%. Chinese stocks staged a recovery in a volatile trade, with mainland's blue chips reversing early losses to the 1% gain on hopes that the policy support by the currency remains under pressure as lockdowns in Shanghai take a bit of the growth. Physical damage to Ukraine's buildings and infrastructure from Russia's invasion has reached roughly 60 billion and will rise further as the war continues, World Bank President David Malpass said on Thursday. Malpass told World Bank Conference in Ukraine's financial assistance needs that an earlier estimate of narrow damage costs does not include the growing economic costs of the war in Ukraine. Of course, the war is still ongoing, so those costs are rising, Malpass said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a virtual address to the conference, outlined far bigger costs and financial needs. He told participants in interrupted remarks that the Ukraine needs $7 billion per month to make up for economic losses caused by Russia's invasion of his country, and will need hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild this later, Zelensky said. Zelensky called for countries that have imposed sanctions on freezers of Russia assets to use the money to help rebuild Ukraine after the war and to pay losses suffered by other countries. As a news conference, Yelena said Russia should shoulder some of Ukraine's rebuilding costs, but she cautioned that using seized Russian central bank reserves in the United States to rebuild Ukraine would be a significant step that would need discussions and agreement with international partners. That's the latest news for finance. Tune in Monday for more.